What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of A Complete Unknown, the music biopic film directed and co-written by James Mangold, starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. I was lucky enough to see this movie a few weeks early before its Christmas release, and of course this film was anticipated for several reasons. Chalamet starring, Bob Dylan as the subject, James Mangold returning to the music biopic fold after making Walk the Line about Johnny Cash with Joaquin Phoenix almost 20 years ago. As we know, music biopic films have been really consistently present in the last 5 years, ever since Bohemian Rhapsody became such a massive hit, and that trend is continuing into next year when we're going to get Antoine Fuqua's Michael Jackson movie, and I talked about the Amy Winehouse movie earlier this year, which was not successful. That being said, Complete Unknown, I liked a lot. There's a lot to recommend about this movie. Even though I saw this movie earlier, there's not a whole lot to really spoil. It's a music biopic film, it's based on history. Thankfully, this movie is about a specific stretch of Bob Dylan's career and life versus his whole life, given how long his career was. It makes sense that they would kind of focus on a specific time period with the story. And it's largely, also unsurprisingly, Dylan's rise up from unknown musician to folk music superstar, then his transition to going electric, and the tension that was filled with that. A Complete Unknown is really satisfying as a music biopic film, despite the fact that it's very conventional in its storytelling. However, that convention is familiar for a reason. Done as well as it's done by James Mangold and Timothée Chalamet in this movie, you understand why people find that so satisfying. The rise of Dylan during a tumultuous time in history is communicated, I think, in a really effective way. And also his impact on folk music and his transition away from folk is also done quite convincingly. A Complete Unknown's strength is largely rested on the fact that we get to experience some of the most famous and popular Bob Dylan songs performed as set pieces in the movie. And as everyone knows, Bob Dylan, one of the greatest, if not the greatest songwriter of all time. Those are powerful scenes because those are powerful songs. And Chalamet is up to the task in this movie. This is another arrow in his quiver in the amazing last 12 months he has had between this, Dune, and Wonka. Now, I will fully admit I am not a Bob Dylan scholar. There are a lot of people that are. Of course, Bob Dylan has, over 50 albums, such a long, legendary career, and because his writing is so strong, there's a lot of study you can do about his work. So I'm not like the most familiar person with Bob Dylan's work beyond his biggest song. So if you're more knowledgeable than I, by all means, disregard my opinion. But I liked the Chalamet performance. I cannot really speak to its accuracy in terms of what Dylan was like in the early 60s. That being said, they both have similar body types, and I think Chalamet does a pretty good job of handling the Dylan kind of nasally, one of a kind speaking voice as well. I love the way he's introduced in the story too, and his kind of chance meeting with Pete Seeger and a ailing Woody Guthrie kind of gives him a big break in a certain sense. The first, chance he gets to perform in front of some important people, and then next thing you know, he gets a record deal. Again, familiar beats when it comes to music biopic, but I think it works really well because I think Chalamet's up to the task, and the songs are there. I gotta say, I really, really loved Edward Norton as Pete Seeger. It's a different kind of performance from Norton, who I think we all know is a great actor, but like Pete Seeger, obviously a very kind and generous person, someone who uh, worked and performed for causes bigger than himself throughout his whole career. Environmentalist, a progressive thinker, things like that. And I think Norton really communicates that character in the Pete Seeger character quite well. It's a really great contrast in the film once he starts to conflict with where Chalamet wants to take his music. Now, ultimately, I think the tension of A Complete Unknown in terms of Bob Dylan wanting to go electric and not just play traditional folk music for the entirety of his career, despite that bringing him all his early success and fame. It's a tension that only can be so tenuous because obviously we know he goes electric and we know it's incredibly well received and leads to his actual most successful part of his career. We know it like Highway 61 and stuff, right? So if you know anything about the story, like you know where it's gonna go. and you know that everything's going to be okay, and that the kind of moral panic that's presented by certain characters in the movie about uh, leaving traditional American good, wholesome folk behind for this loud, real rock and roll that the British invasion are, dumping on America. Like that is not like real conflict anymore. So it's like hard to be so fully invested in the other side of things. But again, I think because the set pieces in the movie really land and the Dylan songs really work, that when you see, you know, big swings happen in the movie, to me they're really powerful. I mean, in the middle of the movie, you get Dylan playing "The Times They Are Changin'," obviously one of his most famous songs, and that is a song with real meaning and real message. And I think it's a really powerful scene in the movie, watching the crowd react to that song, which he's playing, new for the first time, which is such a mind blowing, wrap your head around. About Bob Dylan, like, here's a new one for you, and then he plays, one of the most celebrated pieces of music writing ever. Um, Seeing that performed live in front of a massive crowd at the Newport Folk Festival, which is a frequent setting throughout the years in this movie, that really works. Also, supporting character Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash, his second appearance in a James Mangold movie after Walk the Line. Boyd is not in this movie enough because he is awesome as Johnny Cash. What a great performance from him. Really loved it. Would have loved more. There's a moment when he's like pretty still kind of drunk, and he's kind of moving a parked car out of the way and just bashing it into other cars. It's really funny. Elle Fanning, I think, has a lot to carry in the movie as Sylvie Russo, who is the girlfriend of Bob Dylan during his early years of his fame and blow up, but obviously does not stick around. And I think that's a tension that's done, I think, decently well in the movie. I don't know if the relationship is ever fully communicated enough to be super invested in it, but I did enjoy Chalamet and Fanning together. However, I think the true revelation of A Complete Unknown is Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. Joan Baez, of course, another folk singer, early collaborator with Dylan. Dylan and Baez have some personal trysts as well, in addition to some professional work together. She is absolutely magnetic, and she is able to hold the screen uh, next to Chalamet. And that is no small feat. We know how much presence Timothée Chalamet has. He has movie star qualities oozing out of him, right? You think of Dune Part 2 when Paul and Chani are sitting on the sand dunes, and then you watch, Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya's characters fall in love and make out, and it's just pure movie star moment between two movie stars, right? Monica Barbaro singing with Chalamet together as they look into each other's eyes, and the crowd eats it all up. Like, that is some movie magic, and that, I think anytime they're together on screen, it's the best stuff in the movie. I definitely want to see her in a lot of other stuff. She's done plenty of work, but like, this is her most high profile role to date, and it's a home run in my opinion. I mean, at this point, again, shout out Chalamet, man. I mean, we've been singing the praises. So many people have ever since the real breakthrough with Call Me By Your Name in 2017, right? People know the story at this point, and it's been a steady and consistent rocket ship since then, as people rightfully heralded Timothée Chalamet as the next great American movie star. And that is what's happened, you know? And he has great taste in filmmakers, but now he's also getting hits under his belt. And I think A Complete Unknown has decent box office potential. I don't know how, like, populist seeing a Bob Dylan movie is in the way that we know the Michael Jackson movie next year probably will be really big, assuming it's well regarded. You know, this is another, I think, great choice by Chalamet because it's a risk to portray someone in a biopic so famous, right? And I mean, at this point, like, again, Doom Part 2, Wonka, and this in a 12-month period is just absolutely tremendous. And in terms of what's next for Timmy, we know he has the Safdie movie coming up, Marty Supreme. And of course, he'll be in the adaptation of Dune Messiah whenever that comes out from Denny in a few years' time, Dune 3. Um, Other than that, there's not a lot on the calendar, so I'm curious what's going to come up from him. He's about to turn 20, 28, no, 29 later this month. Still got a long career ahead of him, man. It's really exciting. Really fun time to be a fan of his for sure, right? Shout out the Lookalike contest as well. And also on the music biopic front, I mentioned the Michael Jackson movie, of course, which I don't even necessarily have high hopes for because it's from Antoine Fuqua, one of the most hit or miss directors in Hollywood. But I am very excited about the Jeremy Allen White Bruce Springsteen movie. That is a very similar type choice the way this Chalamet Dylan movie is, in my opinion. So that's exciting. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of Complete Unknown once you've seen it? What'd you like most about it? Are you team Monica Barbaro moving forward like me? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. I'll see you next time.